everyone. Welcome to the Content Matters podcast. I'm happy to have you all here today. Today, I have Viral Bajaria, who is the co-founder and CTO of 6sense. And I'm sure you know that account-based marketing revenue AI platform for both sales and marketing. Viral leads the AI-driven strategy for transforming the way that B2B organizations achieve predictable revenue growth, which means he helps with the technology that helps us figure out who we really should be talking to and when and why and how and what we should be saying. I saw that 6sense actually has had a 10th anniversary a few months ago. So happy anniversary, 10 years. Wow, that's a long time.
Oh, thank you. I tell people we aged. That's what happened. That's the only difference I see right now.
It's interesting. So just so you guys know, Viral's at the MACON conference right now, the Marketing Institute's AI conference. So we've only got him for a short period of time, but I'm so happy that you were able to kind of take time out to join us. The first thing I really want to ask you, because I found it was really interesting, was you worked at Hulu for 5 years before co-founding 6sense. And you say in your bio that this is where you developed your love for data science. And I was just kind of curious as to what was it working there that kind of did that for you?
Yeah, it's amazing stories that I've learned there, especially because I joined Hulu right after school, so it was like my first job, and Hulu was in Hulu. It was still uh, building out like in private beta. We didn't know what the product was going to do. I didn't know what the product was going to do. I was just attracted towards video. But that gave me opportunities because we started collecting a lot of data. And the first time like our data went through the roof was when we did our Super Bowl ad. And we started collecting so much data that we are like, okay, how do we process this thing? What do we do with this thing? And so that led, one thing led to the other. And so I started taking on the data platform. First was how do you collect and process it? And then how do you get the insights out of it? And how do you leverage it in unique ways? And so that's why I say that's where I learned everything, because I was not data like I wasn't in like a data science degree, or I wasn't in like some kind of a statistical. I was just learning everything on the fly.
Yeah. Sometimes that's the best way to learn, though, right? I'm going to say that because I took a marketing degree, and then I went into a year of IT and learned, how to do basic development and stuff. But everything I learned about developing for the internet when I worked at an IT company, I learned on my own. And it
Yeah,
was so exciting and so fun just to kind of do that in that kind of format. It was really, I loved it.
totally. It's fun. You learn new things, but you also start learning what you shouldn't do,
Yeah,
and that was the more fun part too.
yeah, yeah. Right. So it's your 10th anniversary at 6sense, and you had a really nice post that said that you actually struggled to try to figure out what you wanted to build for a while. Why was it kind of hard, and how did you kind of come around to ending up building an ABM platform?
Yeah, and so I think for this one, I would say first you have to go back 10 years. Like we knew 10 years ago when we started what we want. Like the problem statement was very clear to us, and it happened because first, if you look at the background from Hulu, we were using a lot of behavioral data for doing everything for the consumer side, because it's a very consumer app, right? When we came into this space and we started talking to a bunch of B2B marketers and some of the early adopters of 6sense, we knew that the biggest difference will be using behavioral data for B2B. And because we saw there was just no usage of behavioral data. And when that happened, we were like, okay, we know the problem. We know how to get to the, if we solve this thing, we know there's a big market to be had. But our struggle was we built a predictive and AI company, or ML company. It was cool.
Mhm.
Now, we are talking about AI right now, but 10 years ago, we were the predictive AI company, and it was a big wave.
Yeah.
We got amazing funding for being a predictive AI company. Uh, the challenge was we became an insights platform. And what we were producing was just a score. And what we were producing was just saying, like, hey, look at all these cool things. You can do a better job as a marketer. We never did the job for them, right? And then what we realized was after a few years, 2 3 years into it, like everything was cool until that point. And when you started reaching a mass audience, and when you started selling into companies and people that you don't know personally, and you can't talk to them one on one every single time, we realized the challenge was that they didn't know what to do with it, and they didn't know what value they can get out of it, right? So that's how, that was our number one challenge, and then that's how we evolved into an ABM platform, because we saw what they wanted to do with it. And so we started building more execution framework and more things around like the why behind it. It's like it was one of the shocking things. We would produce a score and we will tell people this is the way you prioritize it, like the higher the score the better it is. And most people, instead of saying like, all right, awesome, I'll start doing my job, they were, the first question they would ask is, uh wait, what is this score? Why 100 and why is this a 90?
Hmm.
Like, can you explain me the score? Can you explain me how modeling was done? So it was like everybody wanted to get into like, tell me about data science, don't tell me, forget what I have to do as my job. So that was our initial struggle quite a few years.
That's kind of interesting because most people don't want to know what's in that box. They just want to
Oh,
know the box works.
oh my God. I can tell you like battle scars of like this thing. It's like everybody wanted to know what's in the box. In fact, people still want to know what's in the box, even after we have exposed as much as we can to not overwhelm the user. It's
Yeah,
like people still want to know what's in the box.
yeah. Elliot saying that you're such a visionary in our industry, which I agree. I think Sixth Sense, the stuff that Sixth Sense has been doing, kind of in many ways leading the industry, has been quite amazing. So okay, so everyone's talking about large language models, and as someone is yourself who's been knee deep in AI technology, period, not just generative, what kind of surprised you most about how this wave kind of took off like a, I want to say a bat out of hell, really?
Oh, it's. I think there's a wave for the industry, which is at this conference. I think that's the first thing I'm always like. Any conversation goes about into like how fast things have moved here. Um, but I think personally, forgetting about the industry, and if you think about our journey and Sixth Sense and what we did, I think it's been a fast track journey for us too, right? So with large language models, like a Chat GPT made everything, like it became like the talk of the town, right? When they launched in January. But technically, OpenAI was there a while ago. Their first large language model came early on. I remember this was, I think, 2021. We went on stage at our customer conference, and one of the first things I told everybody was what we are working in our labs environment, which was our playground for doing things. And I said, like, imagine if we can do all these things with your emails and your conversational email, because a lot of our customers were doing email with our data. And I was saying, like, imagine if we can write the email with all the data we have and personalize everything. Wouldn't that be a cool thing? And so that was something that we said in stage on 2021. And then last year, April 2022, we launched the product. And we acquired a company called Saleswell. We redid the thing, their platform. We launched it again, and since then it has like just been like non-stop growth for everything. And then Chat GPT came and made everything cool.
Yeah,
And so if you think about from that lens, the time frame for launching things and the time frame for doing things has compressed so quickly with large language models. I feel it's one of the most quickest to adopt technology, and not just for startups or companies our size, but even for large incumbent players. Like Adobe has a play in it, Microsoft has a play in it. Like, otherwise, most of the times you see like large incumbent players, when technology is disruptive, they all die, right? Because they
yeah,
don't move. But this
yeah,
is the first time everybody is moving very
yeah.
fast.
And it seems like they kind of knew, they knew, well, OpenAI is well over 10 years old, right? Isn't that what it is? And
Yeah, I think it started 2015 if I remember correctly, but it started as a non-profit. I mean, it was a brainchild of like people who were just very, very, very influential and rich people who were just sitting in a room thinking like, oh, what if we could do these cool things with AI?
yeah,
And then yeah, they've been doing it. They have been at it for a while though.
yeah. Here's a question for you. Kara is asking, have you seen additional questions about what's in the box with the increased visibility of generative AI? So
Uh,
people asking more questions.
I think uh, probably because not right now, not from a gen. It was surprising even at this conference. People are not asking how generative AI models work, and I think it's because when I think about it, the output of the generative AI model is something that a human can relate to, and is something that speaks the language that you are talking day to day or you are doing day to day, versus in the past, predictive models or anything with machine learning and other things were more of a scoring thing, right? It was more about like how likely are you going to like something, how likely are you. So it was more like a recommendation and a score, and I feel like that is why everybody wanted an explanation of it. I feel Gen AI, everybody's just so it's like, everybody sees a sparkle, like, oh wow, this is writing this thing, and so they don't worry about how did you do this thing. They don't care about it.
But shouldn't they? Because there's a lot of different large language models. Obviously, OpenAI's GPT is the most well known, but Google's got one, Anthropic's got a new one out, Claude 2, Meta's
Facebook
got
has
one.
yeah.
Face, yeah.
Oh,
So I
Meta.
mean,
Yeah, they have Llama 2 right now, which is the talk of the town here right now.
yeah. So
Uh,
how do you? Shouldn't you want to understand how those models work and what the differences are between them to know which one would be the right one to kind of incorporate into your software?
I think I think it's a yes and a no answer there. I would say, um, and this again, when we were trying to explain things, and especially when the models are very complex, and when you think about these large language models and the way they are and the number of layers they have with the attention layer and what happens inside it, it's not like they the actual training data, it's not word by word in the model, right? They're not like, so it's very hard to explain. I think what needs to go in is an explanation is, how did you prepare the training data? What was the training data? Like, is there any, do I have to worry about copyright in the training data? Do I have to, like, those kind of things are what people should worry about, not how the mod in the past, I think. And to Kara's question too about like what people wanted in our times also, people wanted to know the data science side of it, not the what data went into the model. I was like, you should care about what data goes into the model, not about what is happening in the model, because that leave that to the statisticians and leave that to the experts who are building it.
Yeah.
But worry about what is going into the model.
Right. So there's situations where there's OpenAI is kind of having copyright challenges against them because they're using data that authors and writers say is
Copy.
trademarked or whatever,
Yeah,
copyrighted.
yeah.
Is that something that you should really think about? Because what happens if they actually do are found responsible and then they have to change their model and that kind of affects everybody who's using it downstream?
Um, I think there will be. It's like I go back to the world of privacy and data and other things. There are so many changes that have happened in the world of privacy over the last 10 years, and companies needed to evolve as things were moving along. These things are so new that I think it will be not a smart move to consider that it's one and done and it's all going to be there as is. I think
Mhm.
everybody will have to be agile. Everybody will have to adapt to whatever, because regulations are coming, things will happen,
Yeah.
and you will have to adapt to it, and everybody will have, it's not going to be one or the other. So I always think like it's an opportunity for everybody, and I think you have to move right now because the time is right now and it's moving fast, but be ready to adapt. Don't be so tied up in like, oh, this is the only way to do it, and such that you're not able to react fast.
Right. Okay. And then there are companies who are kind of building their own large language models, not just software companies, but actual companies that are, mired in data. Is that the right way for them to go? Like, does that make sense for them to build their own models?
uh we debate we debate this thing ourselves too. It's a very interesting one to be had. Um and it depends on your resources that you have, right? Like, and how complex of a model are you looking to build, and how much time you're willing to spend in preparing the data, and how much time, because uh, the building of the model, there is a compute time to it, and maybe you can fund that compute time. You can spend millions of dollars on it if you wanted to, if you want to build
Right.
a complex model like a GPT 3.5 or 3 also, right? But if you were to think about like the real reason to build something yourself would be the training data. Is like, what kind of training data can you produce that you think is different than what these already available things are, right? Like, is it going to be that different? And and then I think I would say the evaluation should be from, should I build my model or should I fine tune the already existing stuff? Because when you fine tune the existing stuff, it probably is going to be cheaper, faster, and then you can keep on swapping the foundational model very quickly. But your fine tuning will carry forward because every LLM can be fine tuned,
Right.
right? So it's the, I always think it's the, everything has its pro and a con. Nothing has a pro and nothing has just cons, right? And
Yeah.
so I would say choose based on that, and also choose based on, I say, I always choose sometimes even based on what your CFO will allow you to spend money on, because you have to check, and everybody's conscious of how much money you're spending nowadays.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
So you mentioned that the kind of government kind of cracking down, potentially cracking down and making kind of regulations around it. And then there's the new Frontier Model Forum that Facebook or Meta and, oh, no, I don't think they're part of it. Anthropic, Google, Microsoft, and OpenAI are kind of putting. So there's talk and there's work around kind of an industry guidelines and regulations, but they're not. I don't know that will ever be. Will we ever see a time where they're set in stone that you have to do things a certain way, or will they always be guidelines that some companies can come in and go, yeah, that's a guideline. I'm not going to follow that, right?
I always ask the question, which is, are privacy guidelines or set in stone?
Yeah.
And if you go back in time and go back, I think there will be, there has to be certain things, um, where the government plays a part in terms of like, hey, what can I feel the biggest part where I really think the government needs to place the training data. What is the training data? Where is it coming from? And protect the rights of people, especially from a rights of saying like, hey, what are you using, and do you have any personal data about me? Can I look at it? Can I delete it? What, and I'm not even talking about like Barb and Viral here. Like, maybe there is something about us, but what if they have something, things about a company like Six Sense maybe in there, and they use something, and that's what they use to output some, output like generate text which are completely false about Six Sense. Can you think about like those kind of things will have to be done, right? Like, and how do you react to it? How do you ensure things like that? So that's one thing I would say, right?
And
And then,
can you put actual standards around that?
um I feel it'll be I don't think it'll be standards or it'll be
Yeah.
like, set in stone. I think it'll be still be, guidelines and frameworks, and then somebody will have to eventually say like, hey, are you following the framework or not, right? It'll be more from that. And, because I don't think, set in stone rules are going to work directly. It's not like, hey, you have to drive at 70 miles per hour. Like, that's not going to work here, right? So that's one part of it. I do think there is a part where, um, uh, the second part which I think where the, governments can play a part is in terms of fact checking, right? I think that can be something where you can set some about like, hey, when you reference something and when you create something, there has to be an independent, like some kind of fact checking needs to happen. Like, you think about Twitter right now, you think about, I use this example, my family WhatsApp group has me every week sending some messages where my, parents or somebody share a link about like something that is happening, and I'm like, this is fake news, this is not real, right? Like, and for some reason they believe it. They believe it in the sense like, oh wow, this is on WhatsApp, somebody sent this link, this is real. I'm like, just imagine that same thing now applied at a different scale with this generative AI,
Hmm.
and people will be so easily able to generate fake images, fake videos. Like, how are you going to keep up with all that, and how are you going to protect, certain things? Like, even look at Cambridge Analytica, like elections, like are you going to interview? Like, that's where I think the rules come into play, and that's where there'll be like set in stone stuff, but other things there'll be more guidelines. I think it has to be a very fine balance.
Yeah. I think it's kind of scary when you think about how much misinformation and disinformation and false stuff can get out there now, and that you can't. I mean, people who are in the industry, maybe they can kind of tell when it's
Yeah.
not true and it's faked, but people, the normal person out there just kind of surfing the web, they're not going to know
Oh,
that.
they don't know it. Yeah, yeah, never. Yeah,
It's crazy. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So, what would you say that companies need to think about when they're implementing generative AI into their products?
Um, I there are a few things that I always look at also from, and maybe I don't know if these are um, again, these are just again for guidelines that I always think about. One is um, the how much do you trust it, and how much faith do you have in terms of what data you are sending it, right? Because at the end of the day, you have to give it some context before it will respond back with information back to you, right? So when you're sharing context, what kind of context are you sharing, and is that safe, and um, will you be and are they going to reuse that data or not? Like, there are some things that I always look at from our lens and saying, like, we have to be very careful when we do that, right? So that's one part. um, the second part is, I always think about is the cost of doing it also, because there are parts where, like, we had this problem once where we were like thinking about customizing every single word in an email, right? And generating the entire thing. But when you think about the scale of the number of emails and everything that you're sending, it could have been, the cost would have been so high. So, like, are you introducing something which is going to eat through like your margins completely, right? Like, when you're introducing something like this in your product, you have to think about your operational model, and are you built for it? So I think that is another part that we think about a lot when we introduce these things right now. And the other part was, which we had to think through, was more around the scalability also, right? Like, if it is your core feature and a core thing, and you rely on somebody else, like, I mean OpenAI had some issues in between where it would go down. And so if you
Yeah.
rely on it, then okay, do you have a backup for it? Like, so it's like those kind of things were definitely like additional, in addition to everything that we have talked about so far, right? Like, which is privacy and compliance and ethical and all those things. I think those things are definitely there, but I think in additional to those things, these are few other things that we look at before thinking, like, should we bring this thing into the product as a core feature or not?
Yeah. So you guys have it in Sixth Sense.
Yep.
Tell me, you have it to write emails, but tell me how else you're using it, and then also tell me, because you guys use Sixth Sense for
Yes.
your own work. Tell me
Yeah.
how it's helping improve the way that you work.
So the first one, like, to answer, like, our product which we have right now, which is more of a conversational email product, where it's all about, like, hey, it can personalize. Because the first is we identify who's in market, which accounts are in market, and then we give our customers a way to reach out to those accounts first, right? And even though we identify somebody is in market, maybe it's not a right time. So do you really want to put human effort behind, like going after the account, like reaching out to multiple people and then figuring out, or and that deal never materializes? Or we say, put the conversational email on it and let it qualify everything, and then once it qualifies, then like, then put a human on it and then let them do it, right? So that's like what we do with the product. Interest One thing that has happened over time recently, and this is since our actual GA, we redid the product, GA did last year. We, even after having so many customers, our goal was to say, like, hey, don't send a lot of emails, we don't want to spam people, right? So
Yeah.
we've not sent like gazillions or hundreds of millions of emails. We're still in single digit millions of emails, right? So it's not a lot overall when you think about our entire customer base. And we've been able to book like over 30,000 meetings for our customers, right? And so that's the kind of results that our customers are saying. But the most important part is the number of hours that we save them when you write these emails, right? It's all about the efficiency here. I think we've saved over 200,000 hours for our customers when you're thinking about the emails that need to be written,
Hmm.
and the things need to be had, right? So that's like across our customer base. So that's one. But then the second interesting part is we love to use our own product.
Yeah.
Our CMO set this goal for us, saying, like, hey, we should have this year, which is our fiscal year. Her goal was 10% of our pipeline should come from these conversational email usage that we have, and that was for the whole year, actually. And we've ended up generating 10% of our goal in like less than half the year already, right? it's
That's
it's that
great.
yeah. So the efficiency at which it operates, and when you give it the right data to operate on, is the key part. I think it's not the generative part, I think, is table stakes. It's the what do you, when do you do it, what do you say in it, is the part which we are seeing is the biggest efficiency gain right now.
And the data has to be really
And the
good
data,
that it's
the data
working
has to
off.
be, the data has to
Yeah,
be good. Yes.
yeah.
I
That's
say, I say this is remaining true for all our, like, our entire decade at Six Sense. Many times I say, like, when people care about, like, what is the weight of the model, like, that's what people care about. And I say, honestly, the reason I say you should worry about the data that is going into the model, because eventually if you do garbage in, you get garbage out,
yeah,
right? So it's you have to be very careful how you do it. And so and so that's why I say worry about what is the training data, not the weights of the model.
yeah. Does it work like you have it for sales? The Six Sense revenue or
Mhm.
sales revenue. Do you also use it on the marketing side for emails as well?
So this is actually, so the offering that I was saying, what you're saying is revenue AI for sales, on which typically BDRs and AEs and SDRs are using it.
Right.
There, the email product is more actually targeted towards marketing, not for the sales side of the house.
Okay.
And but it is saying that marketing, hyper personalization at the marketing level, and then handing it off to sales.
Okay.
And versus in the past, like, marketing was more around, like, hey, templated emails and just send it to everybody immediately.
Yeah.
We actually don't even send. If somebody tells us, like, hey, I want to send 50,000 emails in 1 minute, we say we are not the solution for you.
Right.
It's this is You are looking at the data, we are analyzing a lot of things before we send it.
Yeah. So you really truly believe that marketing and sales are really have to be like that and work well together.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And that's been our thing about, like, bringing marketing and sales under the same. They have to be the same team in harmony all the time. I think that's why account based marketing started. I think people thought account based marketing was only for the top 50 accounts, top 100 accounts in the past, right?
Yeah.
The evolution and our education along the time has been, like, honestly, everybody should be working, because you sell to accounts. Yeah, you talk to people, but you sell to accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And so marketing and sales have to be account based for everything, and
Yeah.
it's not about just, like, your top 50 accounts.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree. All right. Can before we go, just I have two more questions. First one is, can you leave our audience with some guidance on what they should be thinking about when they are implementing generative AI?
Guidance. I, uh, I, I think, um, I would say spend a lot of time fine tuning it. Um, I think once you spend time fine tuning it, and prompting it the right things, you will get the right. Your following prompts and your following back and forth will become easier. So I think that is the time. That is what you should spend a lot of time on. Like, we did this thing with our conversational email product too, where we said, like, hey, upload all your documents as you are a marketing team about PDFs and other things, so that it knows the context of everything that you want to say, and so all the emails became more relevant, uh, for based on all the content was generated. So I would say fine tuning is the right time, and spend more time on it. And whether it doesn't matter whether you're building product or whether you are a prosumer or a consumer who's using it, anyone should probably spend some time doing it.
Yeah. Good advice. Great advice. All right. Final question. Are you a Formula One fan?
Oh, how did you know that?
Research. If you could be one on one team, which team would you want to be on and why?
Oh my god, oh my god, controversial question.
My daughter would, she will kill you if you say the wrong team, just so you know.
Oh no. Well, I will age myself, but also, I have been a Formula One fan for a long time, even before I moved to the US. And I grew up a diehard Ferrari fan. I'm a Tifosi, all in, and I just love that time of what Ferrari is and what it stands for.
You must be disappointed with what's happening then.
Or should I say, I stopped watching it, and then I restarted. Again started watching it because of Drive to Survive.
Yep. Yeah.
But yeah, but I love. I mean, if you ask me current times, I feel Max is at just a different level.
Yeah, it
Uh,
definitely is. My daughter's a huge Perez fan, but she's
oh,
been disappointed in his progress the last few races. So.
oh
But
yeah.
Elliot Hill, Williams. There's a lot.
Wow, Damon here. Wow, look at that. Williams, huh?
All right. I know you need to get back to your conference, so I really appreciate your taking the time to talk to us
Thank
today.
you. Thank
And
you, guys.
I want to just say thank you to Ingenix, who is the sponsor of the Content Matters podcast. They're a leading player in content management and customer experience software and been around for over 20 years. Lots of innovative content and digital experience solutions, websites, customer portals, tech doc platforms, and all kinds of stuff. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, definitely visit them at ingenix.com. All
Cool,
right.
thanks.
Well, thank you very much.
And thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah.
And I saw for the questions too.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.